crack. Tom and Jack having a crack.
Welcome to Tom and Jack having the crack. It's a Zoom app this week. We are in different parts of the world. I am up in Leeds doing a gig in Doncaster tonight. Jack, whereabouts are you, pal?
I am in Clapham Town in London, South London.
Clapham Town, South London. We had a little gig down there together this week, didn't we? Brixton Way.
Brixton Way, we did indeed, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Interesting one. I've never seen a mouse enter a gig before. That was an interesting one.
That was an interesting one.
It was just like it was hard to concentrate on anything else for a little while because just like, is there more of them? Are they just all in the walls?
And the mouse coming in and out, yeah.
Yeah. Usually reserved for quieter rooms, a mouse.
Yeah, that mouse was it was funny too because that mouse's movement wasn't as scatty as mice normally. Did you notice that?
Yeah, he seemed very chill.
He seemed very chill. Like mice normally, like they look a bit anxious and they change direction in a very unpredictable way. But that mouse was sort of like,
it almost looked like it was like BBC. If like the BBC had a drone mouse, like talent scouting, just.
Yeah, it reminded me like of the witches. You know, the mice and the witches. Like it didn't look like a real mouse. Like it was moving slower than I think mice normally move.
Yeah, it's not
hammer.
Well, it was in a pub, so there is a chance that he was a little bit pissed.
Oh yeah, that could be true. Yeah,
he got stuck into the porter early on. He's just meandering around like, "Fuck off, you cunt! This is my room. Fuck off."
So I suppose like that's the cost of living crisis there, isn't it? Like the mice are all moving from houses to pubs because the houses aren't being kept warm. So expect to see a lot more mice in pubs. That's what I would say.
Big comedy predictions for 2023. Expect to see more mice at your gig. You know what? That can be the next Disney film. Just a bunch of little mice like, "Father, how are we going to keep warm this winter?"
Yeah, go to the pub.
Go to the pub upstairs at the Trinity Arms. Yeah, that's great.
I haven't really, I'm trying to think in London, I haven't really seen it, but you definitely see it in the countryside in Ireland where I'm from, pubs that would light a fireplace.
Yes. Seven Yorkshire, yeah.
That stuff could get very popular again, couldn't it?
Yeah, because I mean, if you know somebody can give you wood cheap, I mean, that's why we have. So that's why we have fires on the farm, because it means you don't put the heating on.
Yeah.
It's way cheaper, yeah.
And it's a nice kind of feel. It's a nice heat as well. Like it's a different feel to it.
It's just got I mean, there's the glow from the fire, which is lovely, but yeah, it feels cozy. Central heating feels so like perfunctory.
There was a couple of weeks ago, it might have been about a month ago now, we went to a friend's house to have drinks in the garden and we stayed out late, you know, God, we were there at about 2:00. But after about 9 or 10 o'clock when it got a bit chilly, they put on a wood fire in the garden. Oh man, heaven. Like there's something weird about it. Like,
do you think it's like an ancient thing? It's just like we're just drawn to like.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think there's something that when you're outside and you're feeling a fire, I think it triggers something in you, some kind of memory, genetic memory code to your ancestors or something.
Yeah, you feel safe. You feel.
Yeah.
I find maybe it's just like the time in my life when I was doing it, but at uni and then like traveling and stuff, the people you met around a fire, the level of connectivity you have to people around a fire that you never met before.
Well, fire was like a bigger innovation than the internet.
So, do you know what? There's some interesting parallels between fire and social media, because like a fire can be useful, right? Keeps you warm, cooks food, but it can also burn down your village.
It can be dangerous, yeah.
And social media, good for getting your clips out, good for getting your podcast listened to, but it can fucking rot your kids' brains as well.
Brings people together, but can also destroy it. I do find it, and I think we're probably too in it to really understand it. I think but social media really has destroyed some people. Like, You know, when you think of people like that guy who wrote Father Ted Grimm, then like he had, you know, he's writing stuff. He's married. He's probably got a nice house, nice family, and all that. And because of Twitter, he ruined his life because of Twitter, because he couldn't stop arguing something that you know, it's like obsessive compulsive disorder. Like, I don't agree with his arguments, but like I just can't understand why he didn't stop. Do you know what I mean?
I think you said it just right. It's the same reason you can't stop smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
It's a dopamine dependency. You get into this weird rhythm of like, I have to check it. And like any addiction, you need a bigger and bigger buzz. So you need more argument, more conflict, more drama.
To you're chasing that first argument.
Yeah.
He'll be going around secondary schools now in 10 years' time telling people, you know, don't ever have one tweet. Never do one tweet, lads, because it's the first tweet. It's the first tweet that draws you in.
It's a gateway tweet.
You'll be able to handle it, but you won't.
Yeah. Tweeting will lead to harder things. Eventually, you'll have a podcast. Things will start getting worse.
Starts with a tweet and then leads. I watched the Elon Musk show. Did you watch it? Yeah.
No, I was going to ask you what you thought about. I've seen the headline, but
it's worth a watch now. It's fascinating. Like it's fascinating, and he probably, you know, he's probably the embodiment of this time, like the one person who embodies the whole thing. Like it's very interesting because clearly he is a genius. Like there's no doubt about that. His drive is insane. His ambition is crazy. You have to admire the space stuff, but you can also see he's dangerous. Like, because you just you just kind of feel with him that nothing will get in the way of his objectives. Like, you know, if he has to help turn a democracy into a dictatorship to achieve his goals, he'd be just like, you can kind of think he'll do it. You don't. It's hard to see him as someone of principle or that, you know. But it's fascinating to watch. Like, really, genuinely fascinating to watch.
Yeah, because from some of the things I read about it reminded me. You ever seen the film or read the comic book, The Watchmen?
I have, yeah.
So you know Dr. Manhattan character in it.
Yeah.
They go into it in much more detail in the comic book, but his whole thing is he can't understand humans anymore. He just gets bored of humans' struggles, and he goes to Mars, and he won't help anymore. He won't help them fight their wars. He won't help end suffering. He just chilled out on Mars for a while. Yeah, and I feel like a bit like that with Elon Musk. He's a bit like you said, like, oh, democracy is not as important as you guys think it is, or this thing isn't as like, I've got an idea of what I want humanity to do or to be or to help with, and no matter what else happens, I'm just going to achieve those things, and I don't have any empathy for the rest of you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, he's complete. Well, you know, his whole thing is, look, there's an element of logic to it. Like, you know, for the species to survive, we need to be multi-planetary. That's his thing. So he wants us to be on Mars. But he says things that are amazingly out of touch. Like, he said, you know, it'll only cost $100,000 to go to Mars. So technically, it's affordable for anybody who really puts their mind to it. You know, I think there's a couple of billion people who might disagree with that. Yeah. So that just shows you too. And like, you know, I get the logic that there's always going to be, you know, in the laws of probability, and look at it, like at some point, regardless of what humans do, something might happen on the planet that makes it inhospitable or whatever. But I still think the idea of spending money to build a colony on the Mars, rather than trying to become more, trying to live more in harmony with this planet, I think it's ludicrous.
Oh yeah, completely. Also, it's a weird fascination billionaires seem to have with like living forever, and it's kind of
they all have that. Yeah.
And you kind of get it, because you're like, yeah, you're no human being, arguably. I mean, maybe like some kings and queens at a certain point, emperors maybe, but like, I don't know. I reckon Bezos has a better life than Napoleon did. Like Bezos, like Genghis Khan did.
Oh, way better. I think I saw a thing with Warren Buffett reckons the average middle class person in America now has a better life than kings 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Their level of comfort and everything like that. But again, it is a thing from the past, because didn't a lot of kings and different guys like this, didn't they buried themselves with stuff so that if they'd live forever, that they would have stuff.
Yeah, Vikings, that's a big part, like Viking religion. Egyptians, that was the whole sarcophagus thing. If you were rich, you got buried everything. The Han Dynasty famously used to get buried with their actual servants, because they thought their actual servants needed to get buried alive with them. Yeah, it's like a theme throughout history. If you become incredibly powerful, you want that to last forever, and you kind of understand it, I guess. If you're getting the best of this life, you're like, why would I want it to stop?
Why do you want to stop? Like, it's megalomaniac, isn't it? It's megalomania. It's really, I suppose humans are social creatures, and I think if you're too far at the bottom or too far at the top, you just become detached from the group, and I think it just has a detrimental effect on you as a person. To Elon Musk, to be fair to him, it looks like he had a really bad childhood, like, and he there's an element of tortured genius to him. But it's interesting. Not only is he interesting, I find the people interesting too. Like, I find, when you see all the Americans, like the people who work from, like, the way they get so excited when something happens, like when a rocket successfully lands and they all cheer, and like, they really do think they're constantly changing the world.
Well, so do you think a little bit of that is because society, especially that part of American society, but Western society in general, is so much more secular than it used to be? So you don't have these theologies to put your really big investment into. So you end up your job, in a weird way, or your leaders, your figureheads, becomes so much more important to you than maybe they were previously, because you don't have anything else to put your literal faith in.
Yeah, they're searching for a purpose.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they do talk about. And I suppose I think the element that America is young, like, it's only a couple of 100 years. I think people have a less sense of place, where I think in Europe, certainly in the British Isles, I think a lot of people get a sense of purpose from place. Do you know what I mean? They feel a connection to the land, to the area, to all of that. And they feel it goes back for a long time, and then religion is still, it's still prevalent to a degree here. Like, it's not like they have it too in America, don't they? They have the Bible Belt and all that. Like, but yeah, I guess it's people looking for purpose, isn't it?
Those people building space rockets, I would imagine the instance of church attendance among space rocket engineers would be a lot lower than
below. But did you ever read about the astronauts?
No, the only thing I know is they all couldn't adapt when they got back. That's the only thing I really.
Yeah, so one of the things there was a while now, maybe it was an anniversary about 10 years ago, where there was a lot of in the American magazines, there was a lot of articles and interviews with them, because it was an anniversary, and there's documentaries, and I got a bit obsessed with it for a while, like. And what was fascinating was a lot of them were from engineering backgrounds, so they were very mathematically minded people. So most of them, if nearly all of them, had very little religious belief prior to going to space. But a lot of them came back very, very religious, and a couple of them became preachers.
Really?
Yeah, which is a really... Now, and they did struggle, like, there was alcoholism as well, but like one of the big common factors was they came back religious, because I think there's an element, they call it I can't remember there's a word for it, that basically when you see the earth, it's called the something effect, but it might be the blue effect or something even, but I don't know what it is. But it's basically when you see how there's no other light or color anywhere in the darkness, that it suddenly makes it, I suppose a lot of turning your skepticism about religion is the kind of thing that everything. We're scientifically minded, we're mathematically minded, we understand things, we know things. Prove it to me. I'll believe it if you prove it to me. But it creates such a sense of wonder and such a sense of there's so much you don't know. Like the idea that you can dismiss things because they can't be proved to you just goes completely out the window, because you're just in this vast darkness. And I suppose an element of that, like you could say that people turn to religion because they don't understand what's going on. So it creates a comfort. And these guys were masters of this world, right? But then they went into space, and then they suddenly realized they don't know. They're now
a tiny blue pebble just in nothing.
Yeah. See, and just the dark, and then just none of it makes any sense.
There's you ever heard Pete Holmes's joke about that?
No.
All right. I mean, I won't butcher it, but that's his premise is like, you think you're in, I think he's doing a special in like Denver. He's like, you think you're in Denver right now? You think you're in America? Zoom out. You're on a space rock hurtling through nothing. Infinite nothing. And the infinite nothing is getting bigger, infinite nothing. Nothing matters, nothing. And he's a former evangelical Christian.
Pete Holmes. Oh, Pete Holmes. Okay.
Yeah. So he's a former like hardcore mega church, like Jesus is my buddy, evangelical Christian. And through comedy, sort of, he's very spiritual. He's big Ram Dass guy, but he like lost his organized faith and moved over somewhere else but the part of the special is in grappling with the idea that you need something. You need some. You need some story to tell yourself, whether it's theological, philosophical, whatever it is, because it's too much to not try and package it in some sort of framework for yourself.
Yeah, you need to feel connected to something. Do you know what I mean? If you feel isolated on your own, like, you need to kind of have some kind of connection. I think in Ireland the big one is sort of family. You feel connected to the people who went before you and the people who come after you, and we're very good. I think in Ireland we're quite good at making you feel part of a bigger tapestry. Like,
that's great.
I think that would be the big thing in Ireland, family and community. I'll tell you now the maddest thing in Elon Musk, and it's such a tiny part of it. Is he married this Grimes?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a little bit in it where there's journalists talking where she said to him that Elon said to her that he believes that she is, now what's the right word for this now? She is a simulation from the future that's been sent to the past, that has been created to be the perfect partner for him.
Cool.
Right. He said that to her, and she thinks he's right.
Isn't that the perfect distillation of the way men and women delude themselves? Really? This guy's like, yeah, I'm lucky enough that she's that person. And the girl's like, yeah, that's me. That's me.
It's sort of like, like in the past, people would always say like the one, and we were destined for each other, and it's God's plan. And like, people are now like, no, that's ridiculous. I don't believe that. But I do think you're a simulation from the future.
Yeah, I don't believe in the one. I believe in zeros and ones. Coming back in time. Yeah, that's wild. So did he volunteer that, or did someone ask him like, how's the relationship going, or did he just volunteer it?
No, from the documentary it sounds like she told a journalist that.
Okay, right.
She told a journalist that, yeah.
I can't ever imagine having the level of self-confidence, belief that someone would say to me, I think that's what's happening, and I would go, yeah, sounds right.
Yeah, but like, if you were the richest man in the world and everywhere you go, people are telling you you're great. Yeah, he's interesting too, like, because again, he is a genius, and I think he will be a genius until he's not a genius. Like, he'll fuck something up. Like, do you know what I mean? I don't think you can. Nobody is a true.
So weirdly, man. Twitter might be it. I mean, I'm not saying
Twitter could be it. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's fucked up now, but he might do. So I think Einstein used to do this when he was lecturing. So he would do like 10 sums in a row. I'm not, doesn't matter what the sums were, like, 1 + 1 = 2, 3 + 2 = 5. He would do 9 correct sums and then do an incorrect sum.
Right.
And somebody in the class would be like, sir, you got one wrong. And he would use that to illustrate that you can do 9 things right, 1 thing badly, and that's all anyone will ever talk about. So don't be.
Yeah.
It was like a don't be afraid to try, because they'll always focus on the one bad thing. So he might send people to space, and he might reinvent payment and electric cars. And Twitter, in that context, Twitter is such an insignificant thing, really. But if he fucks it up, that might be the thing that people just hang on him.
Yeah. Now, the other thing that's kind of interesting too is, while a lot of what he does looks like it's erratic or a tangent, when you watch it, you kind of feel like it all kind of makes sense. Like I think the thinking behind Twitter, now I could be wrong, but from reading it, this has been my grasp. So he seems to have got on with Trump, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of impression you get. So I do think I do think he would like to see Trump elected, and I tell you why I think he would. I think he believes that he would be more likely to get subsidies for his Mars plan from a Trump government than a Democratic government.
Yes.
So I wonder, is the Twitter thing about trying to influence the politics in America so that he gets more funding for his space mission? But everyone close to him basically says it's all about Mars. Like everything he's doing is really about, like, that's the big idea.
I know it's a real thing, but it's such a strange sentence to say out loud. His everything's about going to Mars for him. It's just a big. It almost sounds like a metaphor you'd use to describe someone's hubris. Like everything's about going to Mars with that guy. But for him, it's
like the story of Moby Dick. Just like it's an interplanetal story of Moby Dick, like. And if he absolutely destroys everything to get 1 million people on Mars, and now, but again, he has, you watch it, he did do a lot of things that people said were impossible, but 1 million people on Mars, fucking Jesus Christ.
And like you say, the cost, and what does that mean for the bifurcation of humanity? Like, is it just the 0.5% live on Mars and the rest of us are scrubbling down here in the muck?
It's funny too, like, because I sort of like thinking, like, a lot of the reality TV shows we've been watching, like, over the last 20 years, Big Brother, Love Island, they're kind of like a test run of what Mars will be, because it will be just a load of people indoors, fucking nothing to do, like, and how they interact with each other and everything,
Yeah, it'd be weird. I wonder if like VR would play like a much bigger role up there.
Oh, VR. Oh yeah.
Because that was interesting. I don't know if you saw, Facebook laid off, or Meta laid off like 13% of their workforce this week.
Yeah.
And the biggest criticism from investors has been, you're spending way too much time on VR and the metaverse and not enough time on the core products. It was funny, when I was in New York last time, I was on a show with a guy who runs a lab at IBM. That's his day job.
Right.
Like a virtual reality lab. And he was like, it's fucking miles away. Like AI, VR, all that stuff is so far away from being the thing that people like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg want it to be.
Yeah.
But you wonder if somewhere like Mars, they were like, you just, if there's nothing to do, you just plug into your suit and your thing and get some tubes feeding you vitamins, and you pretend you're having a steak. You're basically like in the Matrix on Mars.
You go mad. Like, you did. I think you go mad. I don't know. The astronauts go up, don't they, to go to the space station? Like, they need people who don't need stimulation.
Yeah,
that's the type of. So it's a rare enough kind of person,
Yeah.
But I suppose with the VR and all this, they'd be looking at how the internet was when it first came out, and it was slow and all this. But I guess the big thing with all of these is, all of this will just need so much more power. And that's what that's where the point out, like, have we hit the ceiling of how much power can burn? Because if we're operating the world how we are operating it now, and we're burning too much energy and too much power, like to create this world that they're all talking about, it's an exponential increase.
Yeah, absolutely. People don't realize that every time you turn your phone on, that is power you're using. You have to charge your phone at some point, take power out of the grid to watch YouTube, like this podcast we're doing. The hidden cost of the way we're living in terms of energy is massive, and people just don't think about it.
No, they don't realize that's all coming from, either fossil fuels, or it's coming from some energy.
Speaking of fossil fuels, did you see the interview with that? What's the oil protest group? Just Stop Oil?
Extinction Rebellion. Oh, Just Stop Oil, yeah.
Just Stop Oil. Do you see the interview with her on Sky News?
No.
Dude, fucking mad as a bag of frogs.
Right.
She's called like Indigo Rainbow Cloud or something. That was her name. She's the leader of the group. And it really annoyed, the whole interview annoyed me because it was a really good example of how neither side actually will talk to each other. They were just talking past each other. So she was talking about how they're going to keep doing these protests until the British government signs a pledge to not use any fossil fuels or not renew any contracts. And then the guy was like, well, you can't do that because the economy relies on it. And then she said, well, there are things more important than the economy, right? And I was desperate for him to say, the economy is not about bankers making money. The economy is about people being able to like feed their kids and have a house and, live their life. And if you remove that, also the idea that if just the British government stops doing this, because her parallel was, unless the British government stops doing this, millions of lives will be lost globally and the Earth's heat by 1.5%. You're like, you need to get the continent of Africa and China to sign up to this first. And by the way, if you get the whole continent of Africa to sign up to it, you're going to plunge loads of people into deeper poverty because they're going through an industrial revolution. And I was very open-minded at the start. Like, I really want to hear what she says, because I hope you always want, I think, younger people to have better ideas than the previous generation had. That's how you move forward. But it was just terrible. Just the ideas were terrible. The way she talks about them was terrible. The callowness of how she talked about them was terrible.
Yeah.
I was like, you probably could get mowed down, probably.
Yeah, it's like I wouldn't be surprised by that, but also, their extremism, like, is unrealistic, but their extremism might get us to move closer to them and hit the sweet spot.
Well, the problem is the interviewer did bring this up. He was like, statistically, most people in the UK acknowledge climate change is a real thing.
Yeah.
They acknowledge something should be done about it. So you kind of, if that's your goal, if your goal is to like raise awareness, the awareness is there. Like, there's nothing more to do. It's just about, no one really wants to, like, I found out the other day, this might be me being massively naive. I found out the other day that if there's any like bits of food left on your plastic when you put it in the recycling, it ruins the whole recycling.
Yeah. Well, you know that there was a documentary where a lot of our recycling wasn't being recycled. It was being sent to Thailand and places and being burnt. Yeah.
So it wasn't going to British landfill. It was just nipping off somewhere else. It's things like that. I think most people are like, I'm down for there being a solution. I just don't want to be the one who has to think of it. And I also don't want to sit in traffic in 25.
Yeah, but you shouldn't. It shouldn't be up to you to think about it. Like, it's. I
agree.
The unfortunate reality of it is like this. It's up to the leaders to sort it out. Like, I think it can come from the bottom, like the idea that people have people power and all that, but it's not. It's not really.
It just needs to be like, right, no more, I'm not saying these are the right things, but it needs to be like, right, there's no more plastic bags in shops. That's done. We're on a nuclear power grid from 2040 and, yada, yada. And there's no like negotiation. It's just like, these are the things. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, it'll it's like, well, it's kind of like, when you're in school or in university, like more people cram just before the exam than study all year round. You know what I mean?
Oh, dude, that's my optimistic take on it. My optimistic take on it is, at some point, someone's going to look at it and go, Jesus Christ, if I can invent something, or if we can push this biodegradable hemp bag, we're going to be billionaires.
Well, there's that book, Ian McEwan, I can't remember what it's called, Solaris or something. And basically it's about a scientist who won a Nobel Prize, who then has, he bad things happen in his personal life. He's had a divorce. He's kind of been shunned a little bit by the scientific community, and he starts working on a solution to climate change, like a scientific solution to it. And he's driven by trying to resurrect his reputation, and I think he's trying to seduce a woman, like, and that is, and they are the type of thing that
that's what we need to do. We need to get every OnlyFans model just to start saying that they find environmental scientists really sexy, or massive discounts for environmental scientists.
Yeah, but I think the big thing is just the governments need to subsidize. Like it's like everything. I think that the oil companies have just become too powerful. Like one of the things someone told me once, that the oil companies were buying up clean and green energy companies, the startup, and they would buy them up, and then they would just slow down what they were doing.
I remember, Shell is a great example of that. So I remember there was when I was, more connected to advertising, there was a huge pitch to rebrand Shell. Went out to and the agency, that doesn't matter who it was who won, but their idea was so simple, and they still do it now. They went from, it used to say Shell Oil, I think, and it's like, we're not an oil company, we're an energy company, and we invest in lots of different types of energy, and then all they did was just push the green ones to the front of communications. It's like, all you're doing, we have a wind farm, we have a solar factory, we're the world's biggest investor in renewable research. Because you're one of the world's biggest companies. That's why you put more money than other people into it. Not because and like you say, you can slow it down, you can push it to the back burner, you can charge too much for it to make it uncompetitive, like once you own it.
But yeah, it'll be an unforeseen external factor that kind of makes the change. There obviously are changes now. Like people are investing differently, and but it's just I always think it's a little bit like I always think it's a little bit like the Irish famine on a bigger scale, because the Irish famine was it was a natural thing, but it was actually it was government policy made it what it was. And I think the thing at the minute is the countries that are going to suffer, they don't have power, and they'll suffer first. And I think what will cause the change will be mass migration from the first set of countries that get destroyed by climate change to our countries will create the change. And I do think that there'll be an element of if societies that collapse, their energy usage will go down, and just like the truth of it, I think that the people in charge of these big companies, like people like Elon Musk, have no fear of it, because they don't really think it's going to affect them as such, and it's hard to be very optimistic about it at all. I just can't see it. Like, I just can't see.
No, I'm with you, buddy. I think what's interesting, people compare people our age to people who are like 10 years younger than us. I think it's something that's like, it's sort of in the back of our minds. It's kind of like, and we're a bit more practical maybe about how things might or may not change. For people who are like 10 years younger than us, it feels like it's all they think about. And to bring us back to the start of the conversation, if you spend all your time doom scrolling, and looking at TikToks of like ice caps melting and villages in Sri Lanka going under the water, it just feels like it just becomes your whole world.
But I think the other thing about it too, like it won't all happen. I don't think it'll all happen at once. Like, so I think there'll be gradual adaptation to it. And like we already saw with COVID how quickly global airline travel can be shut down. And, we were, one of the only generations, like my grandparents didn't go flying on airplanes. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? They weren't going traveling all around the country. So I think things like air travel just disappear, like, or just become a very, thing for like that could happen at any time, really. That just, the idea that you can fly all around the world is gone, because that's consuming too much. Do you know what I mean? Like, so you just like, so in some sense, I think, and you can still have good, you can still, I talked to when my grandparents were alive, and I talked to them, like, they had a very basic, simple life compared to mine, but they still had fun. Like, do you know what I mean? They still had, there's still enjoyment to their life.
But it's one of those human things, isn't it? Where like having something, it's loss aversion, isn't it? This is a psychological principle. But if you have something taken off you, it hurts. It hurts twice as much as never gaining the thing in the first place.
Yeah. But the whole thing I find mad, because I grew up in a political household, and like we've been talking about climate change, has been talked about since I was a child. Like,
yeah,
do you know what I mean? And I ran for the Green Party in Clapham Common about 10 years ago, and I genuinely thought by now that all politics would become about climate change, and that the Green Party would be the biggest political party in every country. And I find it astonishing. And, people can say all they want that they're very concerned about this, that, and the other. No one's voting for the Green Party. Like, and, I ran for the Green Party, and it's, like, no one is stopping you walking into a polling station and tick Green Party. So the truth of it is, the harsh truth of it is, for all the talk people are doing, they're not that concerned. They're not. If people were as concerned as they're saying they're concerned, the Green Party will be topping the poll and everything. I ran in Clapham Common on the local thing, right? So it's irrelevant. There's no little power in it. But I came 7 out of 15 candidates. So like the people in this area here now, and they all have their, bags for life, and they'll go to their shops where they're refilling and all this kind of stuff, and they're all into recycling. But they politically, they decided that this constituency, and this is a rich constituency, so they don't really need politicians, but they decided that it was more important for them to have 3 Tories on the council than someone from the Green Party. So like, and I say this to people, and then someone says to me, oh, but the Green Party run Brighton and they fucked up the bins one time. Like, but do you know what I mean? Do you want a party whose whole reason to exist, their whole reason to extra is climate change? Do you want them in power with a little bit of incompetence, or do you want someone who does not give a fuck about the climate, who it's not their reason to extra, whose policies are not in tune with something else? So people are full of shit.
Yeah, you got the answer. I also think it's a bit of a problem. Like you say, it's been a crisis since we were kids. And I just think from a communication standpoint, if you keep telling people it's a crisis for 30 years and then their life doesn't change, or nothing materially gets, do you know what I mean? I don't feel like in the 2000s and 2010s we felt, oh, it's getting warmer, it's getting.
Yeah. I think people can tell now. And then the other side of it too is that the Green Party didn't, like, Al Gore made that movie, like.
That was great. You're on a real.
I think Shell hacked into the system there and cut me off.
Knows too much. I was going to ask, did you have a slogan when you ran for the Green Party?
No. Do you know what happened was? It's kind of funny.
Did you hear that? My mum's just down there.
Yeah.
And she just went. He ran for the Green Party. Did he dress as a leprechaun?
I nearly forgot I was running. I spoke to someone I met someone who was involved with the Green Party, and I was having a chat with them about politics. And I said to him, which I genuinely believed at the time, I thought the future of all politics is the environment, which I still believe. I think it's the future of all politics. I think it'll be the main battle for a long time to come. And I said that to them, and we were just talking about politics in general. And then they were like, oh, you should join, you should come to the meetings and join and everything like that. And I was just very busy at the time. I was doing a lot of other things, and I was like, I'd like to get involved in all this, but I'm doing it. I've just too many other things on. But if there's ever anything I can do, this is what I said. I said, if there's anything I can do to help you that doesn't involve too much of a time commitment, right? And then I said that, and then about a year later, they messaged me, and what they were doing was they wanted to run a candidate in every constituency in the local elections throughout the country, certainly throughout London, so they could tally how many votes they had in each place, so then they could have a strategy for the general election to try and get as many MPs as possible. So he just asked me would I run, but there was I had no campaign budget, there was no canvassing, there was no support. So there was no, like, they said, like, look, there's absolutely zero chance that you'll get elected. Like, so it'll never happen, and didn't do any. And I honestly forgot about it then. I signed the forms and forgot about it. And then the day before that election, I got passes to go to the count in Lambeth Town Hall in Brixton, because if you're a candidate, you get to go and witness the account to make sure everything's going. And when I got the passes the day before the election for a count, I was like, oh fuck, I'm in the election tomorrow. I'd forgotten about it myself. Like, so I nearly didn't vote for myself, to be honest.
How's your political career been so far?
Up and down.
So you didn't get to make any speeches or anything like that. You just went
nothing like that. Yeah, I'd love to. Well, I just, I find it. I think if they grew and they looked, I think I definitely maybe might try get more involved. But I just find it amazing that they they don't seem to have.
I think don't they just need to expand their view of, like, this is how, if I think about it from like a brand, like an advertising perspective, like, don't they just need to expand it to, like, this is how green affects the jobs, this is how green affects health, this is how green affects
Yeah, absolutely. But they do that, and they the whole idea of the Green Deal, that you would rebuild an economy with like a Marshall Plan style Green Deal. There was a thing once where if when the public are shown policies but they're not told which party the policies are from.
I've seen this.
They favor the Green Party's policies on everything.
There was a great website for that 2015 election. I think someone did it, where it was a website. You have to be quite politically engaged to use it, which is the problem. But you got to read policy statements on, like, health, energy, and at the end it told you who you should vote for based on which policy statements.
Yeah. And then you'd be good. No, I suppose one of the things that my kind of assessment. Now, bear in mind, I didn't speak to too many of them, and I didn't know a lot about it. But my sort of hunch is, politics is a dirty game. It's a Machiavellian game for power. There's a lot of dirty tricks in politics. There's a lot of underhand tactics. And I just feel like the Green Party don't get involved in that at all, and don't want to get involved in that, and have a moral superiority that makes becoming powerful difficult. I don't think they would agree with me saying that, but that's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think about that thing you said to me all the time about what do you say? Politics is like a gun on the table, and you have to be willing.
Oh yeah. You gotta be ruthless, like, because you could, who wants to lead the country? Like, it's the most ambitious, Machiavellian, two-handed, like, and it's always been like that. You read Julius Caesar. You read The Prince. Do you know what I mean?
Even if you want to do good stuff, even if you want to, like, establish an NHS, the way you're going to get there, the way you're going to get into the room where that decision is made.
Absolutely. And, like, there's so many underhand tactics. Like, I would have seen some great ones with my dad. Now, there was one, it's one that was very funny, like, where there was a guy who organized, like, it was a setup, basically. So there was the Labour candidate had a poor upbringing, but it had educated himself and been through law school, and had really pulled himself up by the bootstraps, sort of thing, right? And he organised on the day of an election in Ireland for all these organisations that represented groups that were poor or had economic difficulties, right? And he brought them all together for like a town hall meeting. And the minute we showed up, my dad twigged that this whole thing was a fix, and it was a way of wasting the other candidates' times, but it was all set up. So my dad got up straight away and gave a speech and said that he unfortunately had prior engagements and couldn't stay, and blah blah blah. Gave a speech, and then he didn't tell me he was going to do this, and then he said, "But I'm going to leave my son behind to represent me." And he had driven me there. We're in the middle of nowhere, and I'm stuck out there. Then. So he left me there. But the whole thing was orchestrated. It was so well orchestrated that the guy then, the other candidates also left, and then the guy at the end, it was town hall meeting. But then he sort of breaks the mask, and he's like, "Listen, I'm going to reason with you. I grew up in this," and then it had all been planned. It was very slickly,
Yeah, right.
but it was all orchestrated. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you kind of got to be doing, like, do you know what I mean? Like that's an underhand tactic, but it's like it's a play. That's a play in a football match. Like it's like it's a a misdirection. Now,
yeah.
It's a chess move. Like some people might see that as being dishonest and immoral and all that, but that's the game. And I just think that I can't imagine the Green Party do things like Labour and the Tories. They're at this crack all the time. Do you know what I mean? Like, but those kind of moves, like questions and answers. Like, there's always stooges on those type of shows. Do you know what I mean? They're always sneaking people in to ask a question. To us it looks like just some guy from the public, but then if you really dig deep, it's probably someone who was a member of one of the parties at one stage and strategically left one of the parties, and then waited all these years to get in. And those type of things, I think the Green Party, I just can't see them do. I could be wrong. I can't see them doing stuff like that.
It's the difference between ideology and politics. Like I say, politics is a sport. Politics is a game, not in a pejorative sense. Just there's rules, there's guidelines, there's parliamentary procedure. That's politics, which is devoid, which is different to an ideology, which is either
completely. Yeah.
You got to find a balance. All right, I'm gonna get off to this gig. Where are you gigging tonight?
Well, I'm not gigging tonight. I am going to the Brixton Academy to see Sigur Rós. Do you know them?
I do. Icelandic, right?
Icelandic, yeah. They do the team to David Attenborough.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. That'd be great. You roll back the years.
Yeah, so looking forward to that. And then tomorrow I'm emceeing a gig in a David Lloyd gym in Surrey.
Is a corporate thing?
Well, I don't think it's a corporate thing. Like, I don't think it's a one-off. Like, I think it's a regular gig that they have in the gym. I don't know if it's only open to gym members. I've no idea what to expect. I think it'll be fun. Like, I think the clientele will be, good crack. Like, I definitely think it'll be, for asking people what to do and crowd work, I think it'll be hilarious.
Yeah. Interesting. For clips, it'd be a very interesting setting.
Yeah, it'd be interesting now if anyone's working for Shell. I was talking about you now the other day.
You cut off my fucking Zoom. That's great. Wicked.
And what, you're in Doncaster?
Doncaster. It's at the Cast Art Centre. If you've ever done that, it's like it's like a nice arts space, like one of the smaller rooms. Because it's got a big theatre, but we'll be in one of the smaller rooms. And then fly to Copenhagen tomorrow for a couple of days. There.
And you're flying from Bradford?
From Manchester. So I got to get up early tomorrow. Train. There's a train from Leeds to Manchester. Jump on that, and then I'll be in Copenhagen in the afternoon, and then shows tomorrow, Sunday, Monday.
Oh, well, we'll enjoy all the air travel while you can.
Yeah, exactly. all we think about the whole time I'm flying is Greta Thunberg's like, you should be taking a boat.
Yeah.
Not rowboat, you know.
I know you don't rowboats, but you still boats on the water.
Excellent.
That's
First-
in
First heckle of the weekend.
there.
Right, wicked. This has been another episode of Tom and Jack having the crack. Have a great weekend, pal. I will see you next week.
See you next week. Take it easy. Bye bye.
Tom and Jack having a crack. Tom and Jack